Drew.
We're now joined by Baylor men's basketball coach, national championship coach Scott Drew, Sic'Em 365 Radio, 365 Sports. So you're at the NBA draft. You're recruiting. You're working out. Is there ever enough time in the day for Scott Drew?
Hey, these are all blessings and great opportunities to be up at the draft, to be one of two programs out of 358 to have back-to-back top 10 draft picks, to be able to have Jeremy in the state so all the Baylor family can drive 2.5 hours to see him, and then back-to-back years with multiple picks. And Kendall, I think, will end up being one of the biggest steals of this year's draft.
How much, when I saw the number 9 pick pop up, and it was Jeremy and San Antonio, the first thing I thought about, my God, I don't think there's a better fit for what he is, Pop, the Spurs, their culture. Would you agree?
100%. I knew all along they liked him, but you never know what an organization's needs might be. They might need a point guard. They might need a center. And for them to, I knew he fit, and I knew they liked him, but again, not knowing what their need was on draft night, where they would draft, what position. And Jeremy, I would pay to see one of the meals with him and Pop, because I know they're legendary, Pop's meals with the teams on the road, and whoever, it's always open to the players that want to go. But Jeremy is such a worldly guy, such a high intellect, and a great person to spend time with. And I know he'll say some things that'll challenge Pop as far as because he has so many worldly experiences and thoughts on things, and he's not scared to share his mind in all a positive way. So I think it's really cool.
When you recruited him, and we had him on 2 or 3 times between the time he committed and the time he arrived on campus, and then, of course, during the season as well, did you see that he could be a top 10 lottery pick when you recruited him?
Well, we definitely thought that he would be a pro. We didn't know when, and that's part of the reason why he's so successful and finished a 9th pick. So many people come into a college and might have, hey, I am 1 year and I am out. It doesn't matter what happens. And, I mean, God's got a different plan for everyone. And if you just come into things and I'm going to get better each and every day, things take care of themselves. Because you never know what's going to happen injury-wise. You never know exactly how quick things will fall into place for you. And Jeremy was a guy that part of the reason the Spurs and so many teams liked him is how many people are drafted 9th and come off the bench. Not many. A year ago, I think a kid from Florida State was 4th pick, and maybe it's 2 years ago, and he came off the bench. But that goes into his character. Torian Prince came off the bench until his senior year and was a 12th pick, and that humility and that says a lot about you being a team player, and whatever it helps the team wins, because normally rookies get in the NBA, and it's not like they're the first option on the floor to score. They're not starting and playing the whole time. I mean, they got to grow into their roles.
Kendall Brown gets drafted, and of course in the NBA you got to kind of like hold your breath for a second. Not that when you're drafted, but you never know where they may end up in the next 5 or 10 or 20 minutes because of the way they move him around. But he's a part of the Pacers organization. How relieved were you? Because obviously there's a lot of spotlight on him, and it was getting closer to the end of that second round, although still some picks left that his name was called. And how relieved was he?
Well, definitely he was relieved at that point. This is kind of for anyone that's never really been through the process, and obviously I hadn't until our players had gotten there. In that second round, there's a lot of dialogue, and what I mean by that is teams will call your agent and say, will he take a 2-way? Will he go overseas? And if you say yes, then they draft you. If you say no, then they pass on you. So sometimes players could be drafted 10 spots higher if they would do what the team might be looking for, or that might be their need. Or there's method to the madness as well, because you might be drafted 40 per se, and they don't have a roster spot available, and a team drafting 51 has a roster spot available, and they're willing to give a 2-year contract, guaranteed. So like every that's why first round is so nice, because you're guaranteed, everyone knows what it is. But the second round, really, there's so much that goes into it. And sometimes, again, unless you're there at that process, it's hard. If you're a kid and you want to be drafted and you're like, well, wait a minute, I could go 37, and I say no. They draft someone else. Someone at 39 says, do you want this? You say no. And now you're down to 43, and you're like, man, did I make a mistake? Because I could have been drafted earlier. But that actually is what goes into it. Then the agent at some point is like, hey, I don't want anybody drafted into this team because you'll get a better deal. And so that's all the stuff that kind of goes into the second round for us outside people that aren't privy to it.
Well, but you are privy to it because of what you just kind of explained to us. That's so intriguing. Do you know what's going on at the time? Does the player or an agent even share that with you?
The first time I became aware of it when I was sitting at the draft with Quincy AC, with Quincy Miller, Perry Jones, just because as you're sitting next to them and they're getting their agents asking them these questions. And then in the last couple of years, I've been on the floor and like with Kendall, I was by his agent asking, who do you want me to call? How can we help? And actually making calls, talking to front office people during, what are you looking at and what are you thinking? And, sometimes those conversations are, he's third on our depth chart, or if he's available, we're taking him, or, we're looking to send someone overseas. They call it draft and stash. So we're probably going to take an overseas guy or whatever. So, I've kind of joined in on the fight for people the last 2 years, because you're right in the middle of it when you're down on the floor.
And obviously personnel people trust you, trust the others, the coaches, Baylor. Scott, it all comes down to whether somebody can play or not, help a team or franchise or not. But how much does what you and your staff, Charlie Melton, and the players have created, as far as everyone knows the culture at Baylor and what a player is when he comes out of there?
Well, I think to answer that question, most organizations want to have a good locker room. They want to draft people with character. They want to draft people that are about winning. They want to draft people that are low maintenance. And our program's recognized with having high character kids that do things the right way, that want to work, want to get better, going to represent an organization in the right manner. And our players that have been in the NBA have carried themselves so well. Like even I was at Brooklyn, and one of the ladies that works for Brooklyn in the media department is a Baylor grad. She's like, everybody loved Torian at Brooklyn because he wanted to help the homeless in the area, and was more than just about playing basketball, but wanted to be a positive role model. And FA is still notorious for his book club. And you go on and on and on about how past players have opened doors for current players. But a lot of times people look and say, well, he's good enough to play in the NBA, and they're 100% right. There's so many people that are good enough to play in the NBA, but there's only 450 positions. So, I'm sure there's people who do my job better, but my job's filled. I'm sure there's people who do your job better, but your job is filled. So really it comes down to if someone's under contract, and you might be a little bit better or equal to them, well, they're already under contract, so they're not really looking for somebody else. And that's why, again, as a coach, you're always hoping guys are first-round picks, because they really have every opportunity to be successful. I heard this stat from the NBA Academy when I was up there in 2019. Only 3 second-round draft picks are still playing in the NBA.
Wow!
And for that year's draft. And it shows you how it's not that they're bad players or anything. It's just if you got someone that's under contract, or you're going to have someone you draft the next year and they're going to be under a guaranteed contract, the people that are expendable are the ones that aren't under contract.
Scott, you have a lot of incoming, moving parts. Obviously, LJ back on campus. Adam continues to train. You got guys coming in and out. You've got the trip to Toronto, of course, this summer. How has everybody kind of mixed together the chemistry early on? I know you had a workout this morning. Can you kind of see things coming together? Or is it still too early to really see what you have?
Well, we have a lot that are still recovering from injuries from last year. So, like Langston Love, L.J. Cryer, Adam Flagler, John, they won't be playing up in Canada. So until we have everybody back, and the good thing is everyone but John will be back by the end of summer. So that's a great thing. And then that's a successful summer getting everyone back. But it's a great opportunity in Toronto to give all these new players an opportunity to get used to our offense and defense. And you get 10 practices. So it's basically trying to teach chemistry, a semester chemistry in 2 weeks, and then say, here's a final exam. Because these national teams, they practice a lot longer. They've been on national teams usually for several years, so they already know the offense, the defense, and like that's why it's hard for all-star teams to beat quality national teams, and that's why we've gone to practicing more to make sure and getting people in the USA system longer, so you have those returners and the experience to compete. But it'll be a great growing experience and learning experience for us. We have love the guys that we have. I think next year, as the community gets to know them and spend time with them, they're going to love them. It's really a lot of hard workers, and they're always in the gym. We have several of our Torian Prince was on campus yesterday. King's back a lot. Macio's been here for a while. James Akinjo just got back here yesterday, and what's great is people come back because they want to work out, and they know they can be in the lab and not be distracted. So and that's really a niche that we have. It's for people that really you got to be passionate about what you do, and then it's not work, and people that love to be in the gym, love to work out and get better. This is a great place for them.
Scott Drew with us on Sic'Em 365 Radio. You have this team that just, it seems like the culture, the tradition, the winning and all that. When you walk into a place now, a gym or anywhere else, is it different for you? Not that you've changed, but the way you've always been who you are. But when you walk into a place now, is it a little bit different, the way people respond to you or interact with you?
Most definitely, and that's a tribute to what we've all built as far as Baylor basketball, because there's a lot of players out there that when we walk in the gym and they see Baylor, there's a different excitement level. In recruiting, one of the questions you'll ask is, do you have a dream school? And normally, the more talented players, usually the dream school when we first got here wasn't Baylor. And over the course of time, more and more kids have always liked watching us or enjoyed our players. And we say, what do you know about Baylor? They can rattle off a bunch of information. They can rattle off a bunch of players they love watching play and how they play. So that and then take the recruits out of it, and just when you wear Baylor in airports and wherever, there's so many different people that recognize Baylor basketball and appreciate just what the players and administration and community and everyone's put together to represent our program.
It seems like Baylor right now in the athletic department, from Mac Rhodes to everybody, but with Dave Aranda, Nikki Collin, you and others, and now Glenn Moore, and now Mitch Thompson's back, and it just seems like right now that everyone's parallel, everyone's right where they want to be. Your thoughts about Mitch coming back, because I know you were there when he was there before, and just where the coaching staffs together seem to be as one.
Well, I think Mac deserves a lot of credit. He always has done a tremendous job in promoting the team and bringing in coaches that are humble and hardworking and want to be a part of something bigger than themselves and make it about the student athletes and Baylor University. And there's no egos in our whenever head coaches meetings happen, and again that atmosphere and culture he's created, he deserves a lot of credit, and hence that's why he's been athletic director of the year several times. And I mean, you think about last year again, conference championships in men's and women's basketball and football. That doesn't happen in Power 5 conferences in the same year. And that's a great, again, tribute to everybody that's helped build Baylor athletics. I remember when we got here, Baylor baseball was quite successful, and Mitch was a big reason for that. And I know he's had great success at MCC, and he'll continue to have success here, and he's very easy to cheer for.
Well, you've had some what I call dogs, guys who would get their hands dirty. You still have some of those, but the Davion Mitchells and Kenjo and others, just competitive dogs. Do you have what you appear to have right now, those dogs? Do you have anybody that's kind of gotten to that? I mean, I'm not trying to compare them to those two players, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, I think after Toronto we'll know more. Obviously, in practice, we've only had 5-6 practices together, and there's a lot of teaching that's gone in. It's easier to compete once you know what you have to do as well. And there's a lot of thinking going on right now to just learn our defensive system. And as they know more and more, it'll allow them to be more and more aggressive. We don't recruit a lot of pups, though, because if you did, there wouldn't be a lot of winning going on. So we got guys that'll get after it. And I think as far as who brings the most intensity, we'll know more of that after Toronto, because that's a great opportunity for all these new guys to play and show what they can do.
Enjoy Canada. I know you've been there before. Thank you, Scott. We appreciate your time.
Hey, thanks for all the